A lot of people are scared of using the word revolution, but it is what happens whenever you get out with the old and in with the new.
Yeah.
And that's literally the entire purpose of these events like these, and the Bitcoin community as a whole is to change and replace. And that's what has to happen. We still have to do more. Whatever happens in the next 4 years, the past 4 weeks, we've seen the samurai people get arrested, Wasabi pull out of the country.
Unacceptable in the United States of America. Completely unacceptable.
I know the Constitution speaks Swiss cheese at this point.
Yeah, right. It's like, you've got judges in some of these, states saying that we don't care what the Constitution says. The Fourth Amendment, the Patriot Act, all these things, just a total erosion of people's privacies and people's human rights. America was founded on these core tenets and principles. And if you can't follow the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and these things that are just core to what America is, why are you even here? It just doesn't make any sense. This is, an unnegotiable right that we have here in America, and the principles of what made America what it is today.
Sir, are you for or against crypto? What's that? Get me off the stage. He's saying, get me off the stage.
Capital.
No, he has no idea.
What a king.
Look, the Gensler is very much against it. The Democrats are very much against it. And I say this, a lot of people are very much for it. Probably a lot of the people in this group.
No, of course.
And I'm fine with it. I want to make sure it's good and solid and everything else, but I'm good with it. And if you like crypto in any form, it comes in a lot of different forms.
What's wrong?
If you're in favor of crypto, you better vote for Trump.
So I'll just add some context to this. This was if you bought his NFT collection, you got, part of what came with the utility of owning that NFT was access to him, right? So you gained access to this event. You got to speak with him. So essentially a lot of the Web3 community got to have dinner, got to meet with him, got to be around him if you bought his NFT collection, some of his pieces. So this is what this is. I believe this is one of the events that a lot of the Web3 and crypto people attended from that collection. So obviously you can see he's more open-minded when it comes to crypto than the other side of the aisle. And it's definitely become a partisan issue at this point. I think the writing was on the wall for a long time. A lot of people didn't want to accept that. And not saying there aren't, people on both sides of the aisle who understand the technology, see the merit in the technology. But it has largely become a partisan issue at this point. And this is just the final nail in the coffin, per se, for this election cycle that's coming up in a couple months. You can see the antagonism directed from the Biden administration, whether it be them saying they're going to veto SAB 121, which is essentially a rule that allows banks to custody crypto. And the SEC, extra legislatively, they don't have the power to just make laws. They decided they were just going to make some law that said no banks are allowed to custody crypto unless you had 200% collateral, which makes no sense at all. And that because no other asset is required to have that. It's not fair treatment under the law. And they avoided the entire comment period that usually comes with these sort of rulemaking petitions. And they just decided that they were going to do this. It was kind of this way that they could just attack crypto and try to separate it and keep it away from the banking system. And the House recently just passed a repeal of this and saying, hey, you don't have the authority to do this. You didn't follow the procedure. We're voting to repeal this. And the Biden White House came out and said that, they're going to veto this bill if it goes through both the Senate and the House, which is a very strange hill for them to die on.
Right.
So this just kind of adds a little color to that. At the same day, you've got, Donald Trump having his Ethereum NFT dinner with all of the crypto people and people like Ryan Selkis and others who have done a lot for the ecosystem are there in attendance, and they're highlighting the difference. Right, if you are a single issue voter for this election cycle, it's a no-brainer. Trump is your guy, whether he does anything positive for crypto or not. You've got absolute antagonism from the other side. So I'll turn it over to you, Wes, and see your thoughts on that. Here you go, Paul. Here's your phone from that clip.
Yeah, it's the classic lesser two evils play. But when Trump was president, all those years ago, it gave I think just due to the ambivalence that they had towards Bitcoin, it gave time for roots to kind of start to take hold, and so people were able to put up some resistance to the hacking and chopping that's going on now in the administration. I mean, I can't believe that they would just preemptively say we're vetoing this.
Yeah.
So I mean, but that also, it makes sense because the SEC is an executive branch organization. So the executive branch is protecting the power that it allegedly wields. Now, if you get a veto-proof majority on that, which I doubt will happen, because the only thing that's going to happen are spending bills for other people that are veto-proof. So, and I mean, Trump being at an NFT dinner, being like, "I like crypto," is, pretty. I mean, it's where he's at. He sold this thing to a bunch of people. I wouldn't bet he didn't think he'd ever actually have to do anything for this. And then his people are like, "Yeah, you have an NFT dinner, and a bunch of Web3 people are going to come and talk to you." He's like, "All right, fine. I'll get up there and beat Donald Trump for another couple hours."
If you've watched his evolution, I mean, he very clearly was more antagonistic in his previous administration. And you kind of see the evolution. He's got people like Vivek Ramaswamy around him,
right?
Kind of orange pilling him, talking to him a little bit. His wife is launching NFT collections on Ethereum. He launched an Ethereum NFT collection, and he recently just launched a Bitcoin ordinals collection. So he is starting to wade in. He sees the potential, right? He's a businessman, right? He understands, okay, he may not have a deep intellectual understanding of the technology, but he does understand.
Someone will pay you for this?
Hey, there's a business opportunity here. There are people interested in this industry. There's obviously jobs that are being created, and it doesn't take a genius level IQ to understand what's currently happening here in the U.S. Pushing all these developers and jobs, overseas. Example, SAB 121. Banks usually are regulated, and you want them to be the custodians of certain things because they have to follow regulations. Saying that, hey, banks aren't allowed to custody, it creates this area where you can't really have the institutionalization and the job security that a lot of people here in the United States are looking for, right? You're pushing that custodianship to shadier entities who may not be well regulated, when we could have the best of the best, with the best laws, the best regulations for custodians, right? Banks are already heavily regulated. They've got heavy custodianship. Why wouldn't we want the best and the safest institutions to be allowed to participate in that custodialship? It just doesn't make any sense, right? But it's just part of this Gary Gensler regulation by enforcement. It's totally anti-American, totally going against the tenets of the SEC, which is to facilitate capital formation, to have orderly and efficient markets. And I believe they have one other mandate. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but
protecting investors, probably.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just protecting investors from the best performing asset in all of human history, I mean, over multiple decades. I mean, it makes no sense. It's actually absurd. The absurdity of the whole thing. It's very disappointing. It's just anti-American. So I hope they get absolutely smashed at this next election cycle. We've got RFK Jr.'s people here. We're signing petitions. We're trying to get him on the ballot. I mean, we want options. We want choices, and we want to support candidates who support us and support our vision. So. This all being said, it's really, the choice is very clear when it comes to this upcoming election, and the current people in power, they got to go. They got to go.
Yeah, I think everyone here would agree with that. And a lot of people are scared of using the word revolution, but it is what happens whenever you get out with the old and in with the new.
Yeah,
and that's literally the entire purpose of these events like these, and the Bitcoin community as a whole, is to change and replace. And that's what has to happen. And that's why I'm not like uber bullish on Trump, but I would love for the temperature to go down 10 degrees, but it's still 110. It's just not 120.
Yeah.
I at this point, I'll take ambivalence versus outright hatred, but I'm still not all that does is take weight off. It doesn't actually give us gas, but it allows us to act. We still have to do more. If we, whatever happens in the next 4 years, I mean, the past 4 weeks, we've seen the samurai people get arrested, Wasabi pull out of the country.
Unacceptable in the United States of America. Completely unacceptable, the behavior of what's happening right now with these weaponized executive branch organizations. I mean, it's just completely unacceptable. It's anti-American. It's not what this country was founded on. Going after developers. I mean, this is some shit you see in a third world country. These clowns, they got to go. It's time to clean house. It's time to bring in, anything is better than what we currently have. I'll say that. I mean, it's scary. I mean, it's going after open source developers, going after, freedom of speech, censorship, all the stuff that's happening, just very Orwellian. And it's not American.
No, not at all. I mean, you have code is speech, so protected by the First Amendment. Money is speech, protected by the First Amendment. And we have a right to privacy with the Fourth Amendment.
Absolutely.
So the samurai case of open source code, with privacy tools allowing money to flow. I know the Constitution's a piece of Swiss cheese at this point.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's like, you've got judges in some of these, states saying that we don't care what the Constitution says. I mean, like, this is just unbelievable what's happened and where we're at in the United States. I mean, absolutely unbelievable. The Fourth Amendment, the Patriot Act, all these things, just a total erosion of people's privacies and people's human rights. And America was founded on these core tenets and principles. And if you can't follow the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and these things that are just the core to what America is, why are you even here? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, this is, unnegotiable rights that we have here in America, and the principles of what made America what it is today. And if you go back 30, 40 years or 20 years, you got the same situations with encryption, and the government wanted to not have stuff encrypted, and it's very similar to what's happening now, right? Where it's you throw the baby out with the bathwater type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the code of speech came from. That was from '96. And it was like Bernstein versus DOJ over exporting weapons-grade encryption. That code of speech got re-enshrined with Cody Wilson and the 3D printing gun files. And in one of these cases, I can never remember one, like the dude printed the code out and wore it on his T-shirt in the courtroom.
So this is very
what are we doing here?
Very clear case law. We have the Constitution, we have the case law. I mean, this is it's not even a starter here, right? It's a non-starter. So
I'm sure it'll go for 3 years.
And it's a good thing we've got the judicial system which is pushing back against the overreach of the executive branch. We've seen it with the SEC. What a degradation of an institution. I mean, they were losing in court all over the place. I mean, such a waste of taxpayer money. Trillions of dollars of revenue from businesses created and stuff that could potentially be here have flown offshore. So shame on the SEC and shame on Gary Gensler. It's unacceptable behavior for America. And the disappointing thing is, if you go back and listen to that hypocrite, watch his MIT lectures, he's now saying the complete opposite of many things he said only a year or two ago. Did his positions change, or did he really just sell his soul to the devil? Who knows, right? I think it's probably the latter, but it's extremely disappointing. He should be ashamed of himself. Shame on you, Gary.
Here.
A bit about the Bitcoin Beta Foundation.
Yeah. Tell us about that. Talk to us.
Yeah.
Oh, you want me to ask? Tell us about the Bitcoin Bay Foundation.
Yeah, so we are your friendly neighborhood 501c3.
Okay.
We incorporated a year ago, almost today. I mean, it's 51 weeks ago. We incorporated at the Miami conference. But we're using Bitcoin to build community. So we were just the local meetup. Mm-hmm. It was growing to such a place that businesses were coming on board. People wanted to donate. It was turning into my job. So I incorporated us a year ago into a nonprofit.
I feel you.
Yeah,
it is a lot. I mean, Wesley's come and spoken at our Naples meetup. We have a Naples Bitcoin and blockchain meetup. So, you feel the pain.
That's a weekend,
Thank God for JMD, because he helps out so much, and we have a great community of people, that can just fill in and help out. We've had it going for many years, and I'm sure you're taking it to the next step.
Yeah, and it's all about the community of people you have that you've built it with. I mean, because we've operated this past year entirely off of volunteers and donations. We've had a fundraiser. We've sold some merch, like these great jerseys.
Those are cool jerseys. Yeah,
Hodler's official.
I like that.
Yeah, he does all the Bitcoin jerseys. It's great it's great quality content. So we sell these too, but it's almost all donations and fundraising, and people just want to support, and they want to see this mission happen of a circular economy in the Tampa Bay area. So we service like Tampa, St. Pete, and Sarasota, and just kind of help trying to facilitate the growth of what a circular economy. We need to be able to spend Bitcoin for services, and they need to be able to buy food with Bitcoin, and they need to be able to pay their suppliers with Bitcoin. Because when you have to go in and out of Bitcoin on these on and off ramps, that's where they can exert their control. That's where the exchanges freeze your accounts. That's where you have limits. That's where you have this. That's where you have KYC.
Yeah.
That's where you have all of these overreach and these tendrils. But if you can stay in the system, it's permissionless money. It's peer-to-peer electronic cash. That is a permissionless network acquiring a third party. So there's nothing that can be done as long as that system exists, as long as that economy exists, that I can buy my food, get my pipes fixed, get my AC fixed,
How do you feel about the status of stuff like the Lightning Network, L2s? Where do we stand on that aspect of, you talk about using Bitcoin as the circular economy, as day-to-day money. I don't think we're quite there yet, but what are your thoughts on the status of the Lightning Network, interacting with it, operating, the average person being able to do all that?
Yeah.
Where do you think we stand?
At 1 sat per VByte, Bitcoin, no fees, it's great. Everything was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Lightning was amazing. At 20, it gets expensive. At 50, it gets, like almost unusable.
Might as well just use the L1.
Right. Because and Phoenix Wallet just pulled out of the United States because of the Samurai stuff. And they were fantastic.
Yeah.
They worked well. But if you wanted to send, you can't send somebody $10 of Bitcoin via Lightning. You can't do it unless they already have it set up.
Yeah.
Like I can't go to a normie who hands me $10 and I can hand them $10 in Bitcoin. Otherwise they have to eat those fees. And they're like, well, wait a second, I don't want to do that. So now I'm telling people, save up until you have $100 worth. And I only want to buy $10 a week. I'm like, well, save for the next 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And then give me $100 and I'll give you 80 because that's what it takes to open up a channel now.
It's that to me is kind of frustrating. And
yes.
That's kind of how I feel. It's like, and again, where Bitcoin is needed the most in some of these places, some of these third world countries, and it's like save up for 10 weeks. No, it's like save up for 10 years in some of these places, right? So how do we onboard, more people? How do we, what's the path forward here as a sort of a dev? Like, what are your thoughts on getting us to that level where we're just fluid? Because we're obviously not there yet, but stuff's being done.
Yeah. So I'm not a dev.
Oh, you're not a dev.
No, we do. My Ben is a dev. He's like,
okay.
I am just a humble miner. I plug things in and they work, and then the log tells me fan 3's out.
I like that.
That's the most dev work you can do is pull logs and hand them off. But I mean, as a user, as an onboarder, as an educator, as I'm dealing with people, so we had. It's just going to be like. It's the fees. It's been the fees for the past 7 years.
Yeah.
Or not the past. It was the fees 7 years ago. It's the fees again now.
Yeah.
Because we had our having party. We had a food truck, and I'm like, hey, this is going to be the highest concentration of Bitcoiners this side of the state, right here, right now. If you want Bitcoin, now is the time to take it. I will help you set up your wallet and do it.
Yeah.
You have to send 100,000 sats to start a channel. They are going to get 80,000 of those sats. Then that channel is not going to be big enough for everything else. So you get a couple more transactions, and then boom, there's another big fee.
Yeah.
So they're paying $40 in fees. I'm bribing them essentially by just sending them those 100,000 sats to open it. It's like the foundation is like, here you go, you're onboarded. But I'm extracting that away, but that costs money. That doesn't scale.
Yeah.
I essentially had to throw away 60,000 sats to buy this piece.
I kind of go down that rabbit hole every 6 to 12 months of trying to open up a channel, do these different things. But for myself, I just use the L1 and pay the damn fee. It's not a big deal for me, but for most people, that's not tenable especially for everyday transactions.
If I'm paying my rent in Bitcoin,
no problem. High value transactions, no problem. But later on, in the next 10 years, maybe that L1 becomes super unaffordable if things keep going the way we think they might, and we have another a billion users onboarded. That L1 is going to be if you buy a house, okay, you might pay that transaction fee, but even if you're not going to want to pay your rent with it anymore because it might be $50 or $100 to use that L1 block space, that limited block space. But yeah, we do need a solution for the higher layers, right? That's works for the everyday person. And I'm not sure if Lightning's there yet.
No,
you don't think so either.
It's not. If you are a Bitcoiner who's been a Bitcoiner for the past 3 years, Lightning's fantastic.
Yeah,
I use Lightning all the time with my friends with very little fees and no issues. It's great. Onboarding normies sucks. They don't want to pay the fees.
Yeah.
But I'm not technical to know what the solutions are. Can you do ZK rollups with all of the transactions in a block and hash them together to squeeze more transactions into that block space? Yeah. I don't think yes, things are bad, but there's opportunity where there is pain. So if a dev is able to come in and create a tool that you can batch 1,000 1-sat per VByte transactions into one, and then aggregate them into a higher fee rate essentially, and then to actually get them in, then there's opportunity there. And humans are ingenuitive, so I don't think that the problems we have are the problems
Are unsolvable.
Yeah, I don't think they're unsolvable.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
So I do think the new technologies will come in, and like, the devs are working on this kind of stuff. But I mean, I don't like the whole pushing, like, oh no, it has to be pushed off. I'm like, well, why? No one ever gives me the answers I get are because everyone has to run a node. Nobody runs a node now, so clearly that didn't work. Yeah. The Lightning Network is going to save us. That didn't happen either. So like the whys that I get are not satisfying. For like, why are we pushing everything off onto L2? Oh, it's undergirding. Like, okay, well, it is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. It's not digital gold. It's not a messaging layer. It's not a commodity. It's peer-to-peer electronic cash. And everyone keeps trying to turn it into something that it was never meant to be. And now it's getting
It's funny though, I mean, because I talked to so many different people, and I think this is part of the beauty of Bitcoin, is that, Satoshi might have had this idea when he put out the white paper. Like you just said, it's peer-to-peer electronic cash, but Bitcoin is so many different things to so many different people. And right. I honestly, like, at first I was like, kind of like what you're saying now, but as time has gone on, I'm like, you know what? Bitcoin is this optional opt-in system that people can use for whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah.
Some people are like, what's the guy, Jack Mallers is using it. He's using Lightning to send fiat, doing all sorts of shit. So it's right. Like, it's all these different things, and it's just different strokes for different folks, I guess is the way to think about it, which kind of goes with the ethos of what Bitcoin actually is, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, for me personally, I look at it more as digital gold. I look at it as more of like a store of value of my purchasing power. I don't like if I have the option to spend my Bitcoin, I personally don't like to. I'd rather spend, ETH or some other coin that just, you know what I mean? That's me personally. Like I feel much more comfortable spending that than spending my, Bitcoin, where, I'm protected by this rule set of only 21 million Bitcoins, this absolutely digitally scarce asset. I love that aspect of it. But, I don't mind using Lightning. I don't mind doing these other things. Like, it's cool to me. But it's interesting, right? And some, you've got people with ETF exposure. They just want price exposure. They don't even want to custody the asset, right? And then you've got, people that just want to invest or just want to speculate, So I think all of these things make a market. And at the end of the day, it's fascinating. It's interesting, right? So
it is. Yeah. I mean, like I'll say, I think the big blockers were right. Craig Wright is what fucked that whole thing up.
Oh, that guy's a fucking clown.
Yeah. I think he poisoned that well.
Roger there tried to die on that hill with Bitcoin Cash. And, again, here's what I think if there's one thing I could change about Bitcoin right now, it would be to make the block size a little bit bigger. And I think that you wouldn't sacrifice any decentralization, because computing, we're at this point where like it wouldn't be any more difficult to run a node.
You can just like double 5 terabyte hard drive for like $80.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. But even going from like, what is it, like 1 megabyte or 2 megabytes, even if you just doubled that, I think that would help a lot.
Yeah.
Realistically, you could, 4 or 5x that block space, and like there wouldn't be like.
It was never meant to be a hard cap.
What wasn't meant to be a hard cap?
The block size limit.
The block size limit.
It was a temporary DDoS.
He kind of like designed it to go with Moore's law, right? So the idea was to allow anybody to have a node super cheap to run a node. Anybody to be able to run. I think that if you made the block size a little bit bigger, I think everybody could still win. That's kind of like. Now, what that number actually is, whether it's, not saying to go 100x what it is now, but, it could definitely be.
You could go dynamic, like something like Monero. And I know Bitcoiners will not and cannot stomach using Bcash. Yeah. I know, and I'm not going to ever ask them to. But if you want to use peer-to-peer cash, so you have to make a change here.
If you want to use peer-to-peer electronic cash on the L1, right? So I think the L1 is probably just not going to be, in the end game of where that's going to happen. I think, I just don't think you're going to convince the Bitcoiners, right? Which takes you to this frustrating point. And again, there are other, there's all these altcoins, and there's all sorts of different tests being done, to do this kind of stuff. And I think we're going to end up having an L2 or L3, not the Lightning Network, maybe the Lightning Network, but not where we're at right now. But eventually they're going to figure something out that will work, right? Just like the dollar has all these banks built on top of it, and credit cards and debit cards and Visa and PayPal. There will be a BitPal.
There's eCash and all of that stuff. Yeah. But then, now are you a money transmitter?
Yeah.
And then now you have to KYC everyone, and then now we're just back to fiat.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're not there yet, but I think, eventually we'll get there, right? There will be stuff that's done, especially, hopefully sooner rather than later, but, we'll see. There's, this is a new space, and it's fascinating to watch all these economic experiments play out in real time. And, Bitcoin was the OG, it was the original, and it was, and it hasn't changed a lot, which is a testament to the community and to the decentralization of the tech stack. And, it's this beautiful thing. But I think if you look at the fundamentals, my personal opinion is that it's more of a digital gold, just based off of where we're at now at the L1.
It's what it's become.
It's what it's become, essentially. Right? And personally, it is what it is. I think there's, other versions of electronic cash, like systems that might not have all of those fundamental characteristics that we love as Bitcoiners, but that can facilitate the day-to-day. And then I just, sort of hold most of my wealth in Bitcoin. And then when I need to, use a different, cryptocurrency that might not be as decentralized. For example, Ethereum is an example, right? ETH is not in the L2s. It's not as decentralized as Bitcoin, but is it decentralized enough for me to go buy my groceries and pay my stuff for the month? Probably, right? And I'm not going to store all of my wealth there like I sort of like to do with Bitcoin, but different strokes for different folks. And we're so early. I mean, it's fascinating to be a part of this revolution.
And like the whole the mindset of well, no, I'm not going to use any other crypto because that's shitcoining. I'm like, you hold dollars.
Yeah, it's the biggest shitcoin there is.
You hold they
literally press a button and add 20 zeros.
Like the dude on the stage is like, why would you ever spend your Bitcoin? I'm like, because that's my money.
Do what you want.
I don't have dollars anymore to spend. It's my money. I have to spend my money. Like why would you? It's the most pristine asset in the world. Yeah, that's why I only hold it. But it's the exact same thing as if I was going to hold a month's worth of, Monero or something like that, and use that as my day-to-day. It's the exact same as having a bank account with cash. Choose your shitcoin.
Exactly.
I'll take the one that actually gives me privacy and doesn't, fund war.
Yeah.
You can keep using your dollar and your credit cards because I'm a hodler and I'm never spending this coin ever. This is for my great grandkids. I'm like, okay, congratulations. You're propagating the fiat seniorage. Thanks for your help.
It's an interesting take. It's an interesting point.
All right.
So that's pretty fun.
Yeah.